Molly had a heart for the night crowd at the coffee shop. Daytime patrons were business people, moms with strollers, and young daydreaming writers, but none of them would be caught dead drinking coffee after 5 p.m. As an employee, it was mandatory for Molly to work a variety of shifts, but the ones that she most anticipated were the weekends when she got to close. Dusk brought forth the truly bizarre, the gamers, the goths, the witches, and the punks, all going to load up before a long night of debauchery. Mike's Mud House was the only coffee shop in their small Nebraska town that stayed open after 7, and as far as Molly was concerned, she'd stay open as long as her people needed. At 6:30, Mike the owner packed up for a long day of who knows what in the back of the office. "Molly, I still don't know how you sell so much coffee after dark, but I know better than to ask too many questions. Just keep her clean and be safe. Shop's all yours," he said with a wink and a finger gun. "Ship's safe with me, Captain." Molly shot finger guns right back. Happy wife, happy life, she thought. Is there a rhyme for bosses? Molly cleaned up the shop and turned it over for the night crowd, which involved locking the front door for an hour, pulling the shades, and mopping to the tune of 80s hits from the movies. A mega fan of horror, Molly liked to find the bizarre dances that survivor girls performed in their bedrooms, learn them, and post video reenactments online. This was her opportunity to practice the dance of the week. The dances were never complicated. In fact, for the most part, they were embarrassingly bad, which made it all the more fun. The more obscure the movie, the more ridiculous the dance. With the floor clean, the radio tuned, and the doors open, the place started to fill up with the regulars. Mookie Madhouse with his bootleg B-grade horror DVDs, Val with her gamer laptop and headset, Luca with his D&D companions Megs, Trent, and Poe, and a handful of teens, too old to be home on a Friday, but too young to get into the bars. The place was bopping tonight, and there was only one more thing to do: prep her special brew. Molly had her own beans that Mike didn't know about. Molly's Midnight Mania, an under-the-table caffeine addict's dream guaranteed to blast you straight through midnight into the rising sun. It was coffee because Molly said it was coffee, but it was also not illegal because the US government didn't know about it. At least that's what she told Seth. Seth was 5 feet a man and 1.5 feet a neon green mohawk. He and his boyfriend Trev were covered in black fabric and functionless zippers, the poster boys of the pop-punk shop in the mall, small-town oddities. "To the brew suite, Molly," Seth ordered the moment after crossing the threshold of the front door. "Trev and I have a big night tonight." Approaching the counter, Trev pushed aside his limp black shoulder-length hair, a comical antithesis to his boyfriend, and spoke in a monotone drone of excitement. "Kids punch moms at the Tiger Pit." "That's $44, Seth." Molly waited as he pulled out his wallet. "That's gonna be a great show. My buddy Will does the lights over at the Tiger Pit, and they just installed some really cool shit." Seth slapped down his cash. "We'll call it 50, Mall, even though you're charging a criminally high rate for bean juice." "I appreciate the tip, buddy, but you can leave your sarcasm at the door. These beans ain't your grandma's beans, and they aren't easy to come by. Give me a sec." Moll kept her beans in the back of the freezer inside the vent, not just to hide them from the rest of the Mud House staff, but to make sure that they stayed beans, or stayed whatever they were. See, one night in December, just before Christmas, Molly had been staying at a cabin in the mountains with a few friends. Everyone was asleep except for Molly, the night owl, when a bright light lit up the sky, almost like a lightning flash, but deep orange, and it left an unnaturally orange glow out in the woods at the base of the trees. One would think after watching endless horror films that she would know better, but Molly did what all curious humans would do: shimmied into some snow pants, plopped into some oversized boots, and went to investigate. What she found was a smoking silo pulsating with the dimming glow of amber coffee beans buried in the frozen ground, enough for a decade of late nights. And so she started experimenting. It was April now. Molly was running short on supplies. She had enough stashed in the vent for a few more weekend shifts, but would need to venture back to the silo soon to replenish. Molly grabbed the sack from the vent, which felt somehow a little less frozen than before, and got to brewing, shoveling a half cup into a personal grinder that she brought from home. She was very careful not to get caught, and prepared to push the button to grind. There was something in the structure of the beans, something different, that no matter which grinder she used, always let out a terrible, triggering sound. A sound so exactly reminiscent it transported her back to childhood. Molly pushed the button to grind. The screeching started. and like Pavlov's bell, it pulled her back to her childhood bed. A horrible sound out the window, branches shaking, loud, awful cries from inside the tree, high, like only a small animal can produce in a panic. Wailing. Painful wailing. Molly got her little 8-year-old body out of bed, grabbed her trusty flashlight that Dad used to check for monsters, and approached the mirror of a window painted on the outside with the black of night. At the window now, she pressed the torch against the glass, piercing through the darkness and landing in the branches. She searched. The sound wasn't stopping, it was louder now. Painful cries as the branches shook and scraped against the window, and then her light found the source. A nest. A nest filled with featherless baby birds, and above it, standing on hind legs with matted, blood-stained fur around the flat buck-tooth fangs of its rat face, was a squirrel, holding the decapitated body of one of the babies. "Mole!" Molly jumped out of her skin, backing into the open bag of mania, which toppled and scattered beans all over the kitchen. "What the fucking hell, Seth? Dude, you've been gone for like 10 minutes. There's a line out the door." Flustered beyond belief, Molly tipped the bag of remaining beans upright and scanned the state of the floor. "Clean it up later, Moll. They're not going anywhere, but your patrons might." Seth was right. Tonight was her chance to make bank. Mike only expected normal coffee rates in the register, and if Molly could manage to sell the rest of the bag tonight, she'd have enough to rent that cabin again and go excavating for a larger bag this time. She got to work. "Sorry about the wait, Seth," she said, placing 2 large cups on the counter, and eyed the line of midnight soldiers looking for their pre-battle cup of courage. "How many of you are here for Midnight Mania?" Hands shot up. They all were. "All right, we're a little short on supply tonight, so we'll do first come, first serve until I'm all out. Sound good?" Molly did a quick head count, 15, and got to work, stepping on beans as she crossed to the open bag in the kitchen. 15 was a lot of pour-overs, but with tomorrow being an off day, she could stay late and clean if she used a bigger brewer. The grinder screamed in agony as she turned the beans to dust. Images of the bloody nest flashed like lightning in her mind, but she pushed on. Molly had souls to feed. "That'll be $22, $44 for the both, $100 for all 5, and thanks for the tip." Molly pushed mud until there was nothing left, placing the last cup on the counter for a pair of young girls who appeared to be a little too young to be out so late. "I'm sorry, girls. You'll have to share. This is the last cup. We're sold out." She raised her voice to the room. "Sold out!" And then lowered back to the girls. "But it's strong shit. You'll like it. And it's my treat tonight, okay, since I didn't have enough." The girls blushed and giggled, taking the cup and turning to find a seat in the sea of addicts dosing up. Molly stepped back into the kitchen with her wad of cash and began to count. $330, including tips. With the overtime Mike paid, this was a $400 night, which was becoming less and less rare. The warmth of the kitchen started to collect on Molly's neck. Something wasn't right. She glanced up from her winnings to scan the kitchen, but her eyes snapped immediately to the short black figure standing in the middle of the room, parachute pants wide, arms out to the side like a goth punk Da Vinci sketch of a modern boy. "Trev?" He didn't move. "Trev, buddy, you can't be in here. Staff only, dude." His head began to lower. "If you're feeling over-caffeinated, I can give you a pitcher of water and maybe a croissant or something." Molly checked the rest of the room, scanning the floor to find all of the beans had been smashed. No, not smashed. Opened? Trev began to turn around, chin to chest. Molly could see through the greasy tendrils of his black hair that Trev looked unwell. Clogged snorting was coming from his nose and throat as his head twitched a little bit to the side. "Seth, get in here. I think Trev is having a reaction," Molly called desperately. Trev's eyes shot open, staring at Molly through the top of his brow. He raised his head, and as his nose parted through his hair, Molly could see the tail of something slip up inside, making his eyes glaze for a second. My God, these weren't beans after all. They were. There was no time to think. Trev reached to his right and grabbed a serrated bread knife off the counter near a bag of croissants and inspected it as if seeing something like this for the very first time. The reflection seemed to mesmerize him for a moment. Trev then inspected his left hand, and then his thumb, before turning his eyes back to the bread knife. Molly watched frozen in fear as he married the two, sawing through the pad of his thumb straight to his bone. Blood pulsed from his chunky digit, speckling the floor as if Pollock had seen potential in the scattered bean shells. "Trevor, baby! Ma, what did you do?" Seth called from the doorway. Molly, still in shock, couldn't force a single muscle to move as she witnessed Seth walk to his bloody boyfriend. "This is bad! You're losing a lot of blood, babe! Grab a towel! Please, Molly, for the love of Jesus, call 911! Molly wasn't religious. In fact, quite the opposite. So it wasn't the mention of God that drew her eyes upward, but instead a warm phosphorescence and a soft, curious whir, a deep cockroach orange pulsing and glowing and humming, beautifully, heavenly, she thought. And maybe that was it. The irony of mentioning Christ amidst the angelic cacophony of the hatchlings that now covered the ceiling that drew her attention. Either way, the horror of the hundreds of winged glowworms climbing over each other with their long, hair-thin legs and maggoty, translucent bellies above spared Molly the knife's first few cuts. It was the hollow purr of the serrated blade on Seth's windpipe that drew her eyes back and snapped her from her trance. There were two reasons Molly knew she screamed. The first was because her throat hurt, and the second was the awakening of the swarm. Without any more dangerous hesitation, Molly pulled a simple dance move with her feet, landing the point of her right toe behind her left ankle and swiftly about-faced before attempting to tiptoe out the door into the cafe. In a way, she crept like a cartoon version of herself, which made her giggle internally for a moment as she reached to push the two-way door. The swarm behind her was making a noise like a combination of a chamber choir and an orchestra, warming up before attempting a new piece of music. And the image of Seth's neck being played like a cello was enough to snap her back into a panic. Molly pushed through the door and gently closed it behind her with her back pressed against it, arms splayed out on each side. She stage whispered, "Bugs! So many bugs!" The room was abuzz with the cocaine energy of Molly's midnight mania. Mookie Madhouse was running a craps game in the corner, the grand prize being the latest local grindhouse Massacre movie. Luca, Meggs, Trent, and Poe were LARPing amidst the chaos in a full-on sword fight. Kitchen knives versus a stack of chairs that must have been built into a troll or dragon for them to slay. And Val, headphones on, controller in hand, was screaming into the computer. "You listen to me, you massive piece of 13-year-old live in your mama's basement troll-faced shit pile. You keep camping out the respawns and I'll find your house and kill your motherfucking goldfish." The chorus of flying space bean maggots was coming to a crescendo in the kitchen. After seeing the blood kissing her sneakers from beneath the door, Molly's eyes darted around the room for a safe haven when she spotted a table turned on its side and made a controlled break for it, power walking heel to toe so as to move quickly without drawing too much attention. "Back to the depths of hell, you primordial demon beast!" Meggs belted with vibrato while chest kicking the chair pile into oblivion. "Your day has passed!" Molly took 2 sprightly steps and collapsed into a disco night knee slide that delivered her safely into the table fort, where she found the 2 girls from earlier. They were smaller than she remembered when she told them to share the last coffee, and crying now. "How old are you girls? 13? Jesus!" Molly's guilt hit like a bass piano key. "It's not usually like this. Did you drink the coffee?" The girls shook their head. "Good. It's really not FDA approved anyway." Molly cracked a half grin. Just then, the door of the kitchen burst open, kicked wide by the bloody foot of Trev the Destroyer, cutter of throats, father of beanbugs. He raised his arms high, fingers tensed and stretched as the swarm exploded into the room. Amidst the brownish fog of wings and legs, behind the black curtains of his greasy hair, Molly could see his eyes glowing like a jack-o'-lantern, a deep, evil Halloween orange. "Hold tight. This might suck," Molly told the girls as bugs shot up the unexpected noses of the LARPers. There was a moment of struggle, screams of pain, but soon the glow was behind their eyes and the adventure continued as they turned their knives on the rest of the patrons. "What did I just tell you, you little—" Val's next creative cursing was cut short by the knife Trent expertly threw into her chest. Placing a foot on her shoulder, Trent grabbed the handle. "Turd!" Val wheezed, looking Trent square in the glowing embers behind his eyes as he pushed with his foot to remove the blade. Val's chair tipped back, cracking her head against the floor as several fat glowworms climbed in and out of her nose, dissatisfied by the fading life of the potential host. Molly poked her head above the table to see Mookie's eyes come to life. He cracked open his DVDs and began throwing them like ninja stars. Molly lowered back into the fortress and addressed her new friends. Girls, we're gonna have to... Oh, hi, I'm Molly, by the way. I'm Madison, and this is Cindy. Cindy, Maddie, we're gonna have to make a break for it. What are those things? Well, they're not coffee beans, Molly thought. It's a massacre, and we gotta get out of here. Just then, accompanied by a bellowing war cry that could have come from any of the Midnight Warriors, a table went flying overhead, smashing out the plate glass window behind them. After a quick shower of glass fragments, Molly grabbed hands with Maddie and Cindy, and without hesitation, leapt over the sill into the crunchy sidewalk. You girls know your way home? Molly asked. The girls nodded as a DVD ninja star impaled itself into Cindy's neck. You girls know your way to the hospital? Molly asked without skipping a beat. Madison shook her head as Cindy fingered the plastic disc. Fuck! Okay, follow me. The girls made a break for it, running around the back of the building and hopping into the back seat of Molly's 1998 Toyota Corolla. Cindy, can your neck hold on a little bit? I gotta do something first, Molly called from the front as they sped back onto Main Street. She'll make it, Madison said firmly. Massive flames licked at the sky from the blown-out window of Mike's mud house, silhouetting the remaining warriors that fought in the inferno. In the split second of passing, Molly thought she caught the glimpse of Trev walking slowly and purposely through the carnage, eyes aglow, the ultimate goth moment. As they sped down Main Street towards the edge of town, Madison gazed out the back window, wondering how many of the glowing embers escaping into the night sky were those bugs, heading off to infect the rest of the locals. They drove without talking, listening to the whimpering of a weakening Cindy. The car pinged and lit up the gas icon. Molly punched at the steering wheel as Maddie climbed into the front seat. Neither of them had noticed the blood starting to drain from Cindy's neck. Everyone was focused on something different. Where are we going? Madison asked in her smallest teen voice. Doesn't matter. This car's old as shit. We have about 1 mile left in her before she craps out. Should get us right to the edge of town. Molly knew her car well. The gas ran out, rolling them right past the final building to the open road that led to the woods of the old cabin. The woods that glowed orange that one stormy night. The car coughed and groaned as the trio drifted to a slow halt overlooking the rolling hills that led to the woods in the distance. Cindy leaned forward with the energy of a chemo patient and said softly, Maddie, I didn't tell you. I got the lead in the play. I'm Maria. Maddie didn't respond, and neither did Molly. They were both mesmerized by the glow like city lights coming from the tree line and covering the rolling grassy knoll, moving towards their car and their small town behind them like a stampede of orange Christmas lights. Cindy began to sing quietly in the back seat. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Molly giggled softly, looking ahead at her inevitable death, and began to hum along. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my new story. If you want to take a deeper dive and meet Molly herself, head on over to the Haunting Season podcast. Want to write scary stories like me? Check out the link below for Nightmare Fuel, powered by AutoCrit. It's an affordable horror writing class I took myself, and it really improved my writing, like a lot. And it was super fun. More about that on the podcast as well. And hey, check out TikTok if you want daily Haunting Season content from me. I'm doing some horror movie reviews and showing off my collection over here and some weird cursed items that I found in thrift stores or my grandma's attic. It's fun stuff. Thanks again for watching, and remember, we're more likely to survive if we stick together. I'll see you in the comments.